Take your time.
Growing up in high school, it's never easy, especially being a male. It feels almost like a competition with one another. Which guy can be the toughest? Which guy has the biggest arms? There's no such thing as emotions being a guy. Having feelings is for girls, they used to say. I'd say I was quite popular in high school, but not as popular as other male friends, no. They had the way with the girls. They were the best at sport, more muscles, more charm. I was just a skinny white guy who got laughed at. The joker of the bunch. I was never bullied, no. But I'd never stick up for myself. I hated myself for that. You never want to be that guy that can't be taken seriously. Nowadays, I never get walked over. I even have people say they're intimidated by me. I guess I was fed up with being laughed at. I was determined to change. I've had a few girlfriends as I was growing up, nothing too serious. But then again, that was my own fault. The guys always told me I was a pushover. Apparently, letting a girl go off and do her own thing is asking for trouble. I've always been old-fashioned in a relationship kind of way, I suppose. My mates didn't like that. They used to laugh at me for opening doors, sending flowers, and walking girls home. What was the phrase you used to say again? Treat them mean, keep them keen. At first, it sounded silly to me, but it actually worked. I never believed it until I saw it with my own eyes. That's when everything started to change. That's when I met Lucy. I still don't know how to date. I still don't know to this day how I managed to get someone so beautiful. Guys like me, well, they don't get women like her. She even began to think at herself one point, which I must admit, it upset me a little. She was always telling me after she got back from work how other men used to chat her up. I even saw it happening with my own eyes a couple of times. I've had to warn men off her. It all made me want to become a bigger man, the better man. I didn't want anybody. I didn't want her. I didn't want her with anybody but me. I loved her. All I wanted to do was make her smile. But it seemed as though I wasn't good enough. It wasn't long until that smile was wiped from her face. After a few years of our relationship, it was getting worse and worse. I don't know how she put up with me for so long. I loved her too much to let her go. I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't. I was so determined to make sure she understood where I was coming from. I begged for her forgiveness, time after time. I wanted her to stay with me. I said and did things without thinking. I just couldn't help myself. But I was trying so hard to change. Of course, nobody knew what we were going through. We seemed like the perfect happy couple to our family and friends. She got on with her parents incredibly well. As soon as I met her family, I'd never been number one man in her life. That was her father. It took some time for me to come to terms with that, because Lucy's family, well, wasn't made out to be. Her dad was violent, especially towards her mother. Sure, you couldn't tell from the public eye. They looked perfect together. But she was still Daddy's little girl, always. I admit, this got to me. How a man so evil could mean so much to her. I wanted to be her number one, not him. He wasn't deserving of it. If anything, her looking up to her father gave me all the determination I needed to prove it to her I was a better man, the stronger man. She didn't need him in her life. I'd show her. I was made to think that bruise or two was the right way to go in teaching someone a lesson. After all, you're meant to have the utmost respect for your partner, not make them feel like a fool. There wasn't any violence at first. Honestly, it was just a bit of name calling. It just came out without thinking. It was harmless, you know, sticks and stones and all that. But gradually it got worse. The slapping, the shoving, the spitting. I couldn't apologise enough. I knew I was wrong. I knew this was all my doing. She kept telling me how I needed to stop. I needed to change. You're pathetic. You're weak, she screamed. No one wants to see the woman they love so choked up they can hear the pain in their voice. It was all my fault. That's what she kept telling me. I was the reason she did this. Yes, She did it. It took me 5 years to bring myself to tell anybody. I felt pathetic, being beaten by a woman. What kind of man am I? It's not just that. I loved her. I truly loved her. I would have done anything to make her happy, but obviously I didn't. Looking back now, I came up with some right stupid lies. There's only so many times you can walk into a door or fall down the stairs. The guys at work didn't think twice after all. Who hears of a man being a victim of an abuse story? Even if I did mention something, I doubt anyone would have taken me seriously. Everybody loved Lucy. To them, she was such a gentle and kind person, and she was at first. That's the Lucy I fell in love with. Nobody's seen her other side. It's taken me a long time to accept what has happened as fact, and that's just some fucked up drama you see on the telly. To think back and talk about it now, it still hurts. It's all still quite new to me. Nobody could truly understand what it's like unless they go through it. I still get asked why I stayed with her. I don't know why. Maybe it was the heavy feelings of guilt that constantly shadowed my mind. I don't hate her. To me, we were both victims in this. There was a time that I did try to leave her. This was when things were at the worst. She was depressed, and I mean really low. I'd meet her, and instantly I could feel the sadness creating the atmosphere. It was such a bizarre feeling. It was over the phone I told her. I don't know why I didn't go around. I think I felt as though I could fully go through it with her if I couldn't see her face. Anyway, our phone calls usually begin with her name calling and blaming me for something that I haven't actually done. Of course, back in the day, I'll prepare for a new way to apologise to her. Not this time. I could feel myself getting heated. It was as if the tension had been built up for so many months and it was out of control, and I was no longer hold back my thoughts. Those next few seconds of my life were the hardest, yet most relieving. I'd done it. I told her I wasn't going to be a part of her life anymore. She never replied. She hung up. 29 calls later, that I finally got her to answer the phone. I told you I'd do it, she said. My heart was racing. I knew what she was going to say, but I still replied, what? She overdosed on tablets and gulped down a whole bottle of vodka. How would I explain this to her family? Days later, she'd been admitted out of hospital. Nobody knew. I couldn't bring myself to tell anybody. After all, she said herself, it was me who caused this. That's why I couldn't leave her. I was in fear. She'd top herself. In fact, I knew she would. There was no doubt about it. I was to blame for her misery. Therefore, I felt it was my job to help her. Well, at least try. The next 9 months of the relationship didn't get any easier. Little did I know they'd be the last 9 months. I was powerless. I had nothing in me to give anymore. The love I felt for her slowly started to disappear. I could see I wasn't in the wrong, but I still felt trapped. I couldn't just leave her, not after what had happened previously. She made me feel so worthless in my mind. Nobody else would want me but her. So I began to settle my mind into the process of thinking it is what my future held. December 15th, 2009 was the day I began my new life. I still don't think it's sunk in yet that Lucy and I are apart. After years of beating and emotional abuse, it was an unexpected visit from my mother that caught her out. It wasn't the best of situations, as no mother wants to walk in on her son covered in blood. It was only a few moments beforehand that Lucy held me to the floor and coughed up her saliva onto my face, a well-known act of hers that when she doesn't get her own way. She, who I now call my ex-girlfriend, is receiving help for manic depression and still to this day have not faced up to my fear of speaking out to her family. There will come a day that I can pull myself together back again. I'm not sure when, but I'm going to hide behind these lies. I'm not going to hide behind these lines anymore. I haven't told this story for sympathy, or for psychological analysis, or why my lover of 5.5 years abused the man she said she loved. It's not often you hear domestic violence stories coming from men. I think it's about time that changed, don't you?